Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. The sound of a closing door echoed through the quiet Portland townhouse. Daniel Keller leaned against the kitchen counter, staring at the untouched dinner he'd cooked 3 hours ago. The candles had burned down to stubs. The pasta had gone cold. The clock read 10:47 p.m. It was becoming a pattern. Every night, his wife, Lena, had a new reason for being late. First, it was work meetings. Then, girls' nights. Now it was always something vague, plans. He'd stopped asking what kind. Daniel wasn't the jealous type. He wasn't controlling, dramatic, or loud. He was the quiet kind, the one who fixed things instead of breaking them. The kind who thought love could be repaired if you just tried hard enough. But something had shifted in Lena. Her laughter had become distant, her phone always face down, and her kisses mechanical, like muscle memory. The woman who once leaned on his shoulder while reading bedtime stories to him now barely met his eyes across the breakfast table. He noticed the perfume that wasn't hers, the small bruises shaped like fingerprints near her collarbone, the way she flinched when he brushed her hair aside. Still, he said nothing. Until one night, she slipped up. It was supposed to be a regular Friday. Lena had left for yoga class, saying she'd grab dinner afterward. Daniel stayed home, folding laundry and listening to rain tap against the windows. When he went to grab her workout bag to toss in the laundry, her phone buzzed. He wasn't snooping, but the screen lit up with a preview that froze him in place. Same hotel, same time, winky face. He didn't open it, didn't scroll, didn't rage. He just placed the phone back on the counter, walked to the window, and stared at his reflection. There was a man staring back, exhausted, betrayed, and strangely calm. The next morning, Lena kissed him on the cheek as if nothing had happened. Her smile was too bright, her voice too smooth. "Heading to my sister's for the weekend," she said, grabbing a small suitcase. He simply nodded. "Drive safe." And as she drove off, Daniel did something unexpected. He didn't follow her. He didn't confront her. He didn't even text. He went upstairs, opened his laptop, and began sorting digital files, receipts, insurance policies, property documents, joint accounts. Every keystroke was a decision. Every click a goodbye he never had the courage to say out loud. That evening, while Lena's weekend trip was still fresh, Daniel's phone buzzed with another notification from the location app they'd once shared for safety reasons. She'd forgotten to turn it off. The little blue dot blinked on the screen, Riverline Hotel. Room 408. He stared at it for a long time, not out of curiosity, but closure. He needed to see it once, to bury the illusion of the woman he'd loved. He drove there, parked across the street, watched through the reflection of the hotel's glass doors as Lena walked out, laughing, her hand brushing against a tall man in a dark coat. The man leaned in close, whispered something, and she smiled, the kind of smile Daniel hadn't seen in years. That was all he needed. No shouting, no scene, just the truth. He drove back home in silence, rain splattering against the windshield, each drop sounding like the end of something beautiful. At 2:11 a.m., his phone buzzed again. A message from her, the text that ended it all. "Stop tracking me, Daniel. I'm not your property. I'm a free woman." He stared at those words for a long moment, then exhaled. The numbness was replaced by something colder, clarity. He typed slowly, each letter a quiet sentence in the language of revenge. "You're right. You're free. Completely. Free enough to find somewhere else to live." And that's when the quiet storm inside him broke. He stood, pulled a box from the hallway closet, and began packing her things. The dresses she wore for someone else, the jewelry he'd bought, the letters she'd stopped writing. Every sound, the rip of tape, the clink of perfume bottles, echoed through the empty house like thunder. 12 minutes later, the phone began to ring. Once, twice, then again. "Daniel, stop. Please. You're overreacting. I didn't mean it like that. Just pick up. Please, let's talk." He didn't move. The only sound left was the slow, steady beat of rain outside. He whispered to himself, almost amused, "You wanted freedom, Lena. Now you'll know what it feels like." The first call came 12 minutes after Daniel sent that final text. Then another. Then 5 more. Each one a little more frantic, a little less composed. He didn't answer any of them. Instead, he moved quietly through the house, folding the last of her clothes, taping boxes shut, and setting them by the door. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped, and the wind pressed against the windows like it wanted to hear what was happening inside. Lena had always been loud, impulsive, emotional. Daniel had always been quiet, measured, strategic. But tonight, it wasn't just calm, it was surgical. He gathered her framed photos from the hallway. Most were of her smiling in places he'd never been invited to. Work parties, weekend getaways, dinners that were only for the team. He placed them gently in a box labeled miscellaneous. His phone buzzed again, lighting up with her contact name, Lena. He turned it face down. Moments later, headlights flared outside. Tires splashed through puddles as her car screeched into the driveway. The door burst open with a gust of cold wind and the faint scent of her perfume. Daniel. Her voice cracked, breathless and trembling. He didn't look up. He just kept sealing the last box. She stepped into the living room, soaked hair clinging to her cheeks. Why are you doing this? You're blowing everything out of proportion. Daniel finally lifted his gaze, calm, steady, unreadable. I'm not doing anything, Lena. I'm just giving you what you said you wanted. Her eyes darted to the boxes stacked near the door. You can't be serious. Oh, I am. He leaned back, arms crossed. Your clothes, your things, your freedom, all neatly packed. She let out a shaky laugh. You're insane. It was just a text. I didn't mean. Like you didn't mean the hotel? Or the late nights? Or the perfume that isn't yours? His voice didn't rise. It stayed terrifyingly even. Her lips parted, then froze. You were spying on me? I didn't have to, he said, voice low. You left a trail loud enough to hear from space. She stepped closer, lowering her tone, trying to soften it. Danny, listen. I made mistakes. I was just lost. You've been distant and I... He cut her off. No, Lena. I wasn't distant. You were elsewhere. I was right here. Always. Silence filled the room like fog. She looked around, scanning for something to hold on to. So what now? You throw me out in the middle of the night. You think that makes you better than me? He smiled faintly. No, but it'll make me sleep better. Her voice cracked. You can't just erase me like this. Daniel tilted his head. Funny. That's exactly what you've been doing for months. Erasing me, one lie at a time. Lena's composure finally shattered. Tears blurred her mascara. I'll change. I'll fix it. Please, just don't do this. For a moment, his eyes softened. The woman standing before him wasn't the charming, confident version he once adored. She looked smaller now, frightened, lost, realizing the cost of what she'd gambled away. He spoke quietly. You know what hurts most? Not that you cheated, but that you thought I'd never find out, or worse, that I wouldn't care enough to notice. She reached out, fingers trembling. Daniel, please. He stepped back. Don't. You're just scared because I stopped chasing you. Lena stood frozen, her breath uneven. She'd expected rage, accusations, maybe broken glass. Not this calm, haunting indifference that fell heavier than any anger. Daniel picked up his jacket and car keys. The storage unit's under your name. The rent's prepaid for 6 months. You'll find everything you own there. Everything you don't belongs to the life you destroyed. Her jaw quivered. You're not serious. He paused by the door. You always said you wanted to feel free. Congratulations, Lena. You finally are. He walked out, the door clicking softly behind him. For a long moment, the house was silent except for her ragged breathing. Then the panic set in. She ran to the bedroom. Closet empty. Bathroom empty. Vanity drawers emptied. When she opened the jewelry box, she found one thing left inside. A folded note. You once said love is trust. You broke it. So this isn't revenge, it's release. Lena sank to the floor, shaking, staring at the boxes stacked by the door. The rain outside grew louder, like the world itself was closing in. Hours later, she sat alone on the couch, her makeup smeared, her phone filled with unanswered calls. Every minute felt like another door locking shut behind her. Daniel, meanwhile, parked his truck by the river. He sat there for a long time, rain dripping down the windshield. He wasn't smiling, but there was peace, quiet, measured peace. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't exposed her online, hadn't dragged anyone into it. He'd just done what she never thought he could, walked away without looking back. Some people think revenge is fire, but sometimes it's silence. And silence, Daniel realized, burns far longer. Lena woke to a quiet that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like punishment. The rain had stopped, but the world outside looked gray, like even the sunlight didn't want to touch her anymore. She sat on the couch, surrounded by sealed boxes, staring at the indentation on the carpet where Daniel's chair used to be. He had really done it. He was gone. She tried calling again, his number, his brother, even his workplace, but nothing. The calls went to voicemail. Her messages sat unread. "Daniel, please," she whispered into her phone. "We can fix this. I just need to see you." But deep down, she knew this wasn't about fixing anything. It was about realizing how small her world was without him in it. 3 days later, she drove to the storage facility. When the manager handed her the key, he said politely, "He prepaid for 6 months. Told us to expect you." His calm tone made her stomach twist. Daniel had planned all this in silence. Every box, every step, perfectly measured, like he'd been preparing to let her go long before she'd even asked for freedom. She opened the storage unit. Inside, everything looked too neat, too intentional. Her designer handbags stacked like museum pieces. Dresses she once wore for someone else now hung lifeless on a rack. At the very back, she found another box labeled simply, "Truth." Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were printed photos, screenshots of messages, hotel invoices, her credit card receipts from weekends she'd lied about. Every detail she thought she'd buried was laid out neatly, organized like evidence. And on top, a single envelope. Her name written in his steady handwriting. "Lena, you spent months teaching me that silence means weakness. You were wrong. Silence can also mean preparation. I didn't shout. I didn't expose you. I just removed myself from the story you were rewriting without me. Now you have everything you said you wanted. Space, freedom, and time to think. But just know, when you finally realize what you lost, I won't be waiting." Her chest tightened. The weight of those words was heavier than any confrontation. There were no threats, no insults, just a quiet farewell from a man who once would have done anything to protect her. She sank to the floor, tears blurring the ink. For the first time, she wasn't angry, she was afraid. Because this wasn't just a breakup. This was an erasure. Meanwhile, Daniel's life was changing faster than she realized. He had taken a few days off work, stayed at a small cabin by the coast, and spent his mornings walking along the beach with a thermos of coffee in hand. The air smelled like salt and new beginnings. He wasn't running away. He was recalibrating. For years, his life revolved around Lena's moods, her whims, her charm, her constant need for validation. Now, there was only quiet. He'd started painting again, something he hadn't done since college. His hands, once used to fix what was broken, now created something out of nothing. The canvas filled with stormy blues and gentle whites, mirroring the calm chaos he'd lived through. He didn't hate her, not anymore, but he couldn't unsee the truth, either. When his phone buzzed, he ignored it. But by the 5th message, curiosity won. "I went to the storage unit. I saw everything. You didn't have to humiliate me like this. Please, Daniel, let's talk." He read it, then deleted it. There was a time when her words could twist him up inside, make him question himself. But not now. He'd learned something she never understood. Walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Lena tried everything to reach him after that. She showed up at his old job. He'd already resigned. She went to his mother's house. He told them not to get involved. Every door she knocked on opened to silence. And then one evening, a letter arrived at her apartment. No return address, just a small card inside with Daniel's handwriting. "I don't track you anymore, Lena. But just so you know, the moment I stopped, I finally felt free." That one line broke her. She realized what she'd mistaken for control had always been care. What she called freedom had just been recklessness. And what she'd taken for granted, his quiet loyalty, was the rarest kind of love there was. But it was gone now. Weeks passed. Lena tried to rebuild. New job, new apartment, new life. But guilt has a strange way of following you. It sits in the corner, whispering at night. Every time she caught herself laughing, she'd remember how Daniel used to laugh too. Softly, sincerely, as if life itself was a gift. She'd scroll through her old photos, zooming in on the details she'd ignored. His hand holding hers, his smile in the background, the way he always looked at her like she was home. Now, all she could think was, he was the home she burned down herself. Daniel never posted about her, never mentioned her name. He didn't need to. His revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't about humiliation or anger. It was about absence. And absence, Lena learned, can echo louder than 1,000 shouted words. She sent one last message weeks later. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. I know I don't deserve it, but I'll wait. He never replied. Because for Daniel, revenge wasn't about making her suffer. It was about reclaiming himself. And that kind of peace, once found, doesn't need an audience. 6 months passed. The seasons had changed, but the silence between them never did. Lena had moved into a small apartment downtown. Bare walls, single lamp, quiet evenings. It wasn't that she couldn't afford more. She just couldn't bring herself to decorate. Everything felt temporary, like she was waiting for a life that no longer existed. The city noise outside used to comfort her. Cars, chatter, the hum of life. But now it just reminded her of the voice that wasn't there anymore. Daniel's steady tone, his quiet jokes over morning coffee, the way he'd hum old songs while fixing the kitchen faucet. She missed him in the smallest moments. The empty chair at breakfast, the silence after she said something funny, and instinctively waited for his laugh. But the worst part was knowing he wasn't missing her back. He had moved on. Lena knew because she saw him once, by accident. She was coming out of a bookstore when she noticed a familiar figure across the street. Daniel, in a navy sweater and dark jeans, standing beside a woman in a soft beige coat. She had brown hair tucked behind her ear and a gentle smile that made him look lighter, happier. Lena froze. The world around her blurred. Daniel leaned in to say something to the woman, who laughed softly and slipped her arm through his. There was no bitterness in his face, no anger, only peace. That's when it hit her. The real revenge wasn't what he took from her. It was what he gave himself back. That night, Lena sat by her window, clutching the old note he'd left behind, the one that said, "Silence can also mean preparation." Back then, she thought it was cruel. Now, she realized it was mercy. He hadn't tried to destroy her reputation or humiliate her. He'd simply walked away, leaving her alone with the sound of her own choices. Regret is a patient teacher. It doesn't shout. It whispers. And every whisper reminded her that she had traded something irreplaceable for something meaningless. She had thought freedom meant being desired, admired, unbound. But freedom without loyalty, without love, felt more like exile. And Daniel? He had learned what freedom really meant. Peace without pretending. Weeks later, Lena received a letter in the mail. No name, no return address. Just her name written neatly in the corner. Inside was a short note, written in Daniel's familiar handwriting. Lena, I hope you're doing better. I'm not angry anymore. I just hope you find the version of yourself you kept running from. Take care. Daniel. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't forgiving in the way she secretly wished for. But it was closure, pure, honest, final. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she folded the note back into the envelope. For the first time, she didn't try to call or text him. She just whispered, "I'm sorry," into the quiet air, knowing he'd never hear it. And maybe that was the point. Meanwhile, Daniel sat by the coast, sketchbook in hand. The waves rolled in slow rhythm, seagulls cutting across the silver sky. He wasn't thinking about the past anymore. His life had become lighter, simpler. The woman beside him, Claire, rested her head on his shoulder, asking softly, "What are you thinking about?" He smiled faintly. How peace feels better than revenge. Claire smiled, tracing her fingers across his wrist. You've earned it. And he had. Daniel had learned that real revenge wasn't making someone suffer. It was healing so completely that their betrayal no longer defined you. As the tide rose, he closed his sketchbook and looked toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, the storm that once tore his world apart had finally gone quiet. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt free, truly free.